So, back to dolphins.
Yeah.
It's exciting, isn't it?
Yes, it is. And
so the films, the spiritual films.
Oh, well,
where are they all? Why aren't they happening?
Well, I think they are, but I think they happen in kind of a different way in Hollywood. I think they're films of the spirit. Something like Harold and Maude is a very spiritual comedy. In a way, it's a comedy, and it kind of doesn't make sense, and it's a silly Hollywood movie.
Right.
But in another way...
Is that the Audrey Hepburn thing?
No, that's Ruth Gordon and Bud Cort.
Okay.
It was a story about a boy who's in his 20s and a woman who's just about to turn 80.
Right.
And they have a brief but really deep relationship for about a week, in which he falls in love with this old lady. She engenders in him the desire to keep living, because he's kind of suicidal. He doesn't see there's any point to living.
Right.
And in fact, they meet at a funeral. He likes to go to funerals for fun, and she's going because she knows she's going to die soon, and she's just kind of investing herself in finding out what they're all about. And they meet there. She sees his need, and kind of as a last gesture of her life, she imbues in him the desire to live.
So there's spiritual content. I mean, I love the movies, and I would agree with you that even in the normal kind of narrative fiction movies, there is often a spiritual content.
Right. Even something like what's that Jimmy Stewart movie about Christmas? That there's a run on the bank. Somebody is going to try to destroy his little home savings and loan, and he feels like he's failed, and he's going to throw himself into a river.
I don't remember that.
What's the name of that movie?
Don't recall that.
It's on the tip of my tongue, but I was thinking of Avatar. As far as
Avatar's
more
another
modern one.
Yeah, I mean, so there are those movies out there, and sometimes they come disguised as violent Hollywood films, like Avatar.
Yeah, there's
but
always
in
a bit of
sense,
violence.
there's this uplifting quality. Weren't we talking about stories the other night? And there's the stories that have happy endings are the ones that
Or the comedies.
Yeah, the comedies have happy endings, but there are other films that have happy endings also. But those endings usually are uplifting. You feel uplifted. You feel it gives you a vibrancy back to your life that you may not have had when you walked in.
I still think there's kind of a whole new genre of film to be made. I think, and we've launched here a thing called the International Metaphysical Film Festival. So if you come across people on your journeys in California in the film industry that are interested in metaphysical films.
Yeah. Well, as a matter of fact, we have a friend who
touch.
also, what I can't remember the name of that. What's her company called? Ariel
It's
for it?
the Gaia TV. Gaiam TV.
Gaiam TV, yeah. It's
Gaiam
starting
TV.
to- yeah. Yeah.
It's a whole network. It's an internet launched
Right.
network specializing in spiritually related film products.
Oh, well, there we are. So,
Yeah.
so
I think probably
Adele
they haven't
Ford.
traditionally, when they're really
Ariel Ford.
in your face spiritual, they don't kind of get that audience, but there's a hunger for that kind of feeling in audiences. So sometimes it gets slipped in under the surface, gets slipped in.
Yeah, and there've been quite a few movies that have come out about near-death experiences and ghost type, people who've died and come back. And there's an interest in that phenomenon,
Right.
which I think, as a scientist of spirituality, is very interesting. The whole near-death experience.
Yeah.
And, I've met people that have had those kind of experiences, and I was going to ask, that was one of my questions for you, actually.
Well, if I can just say one last thing about violence. Actually, I'm a very non-violent person. I practice a non-violent martial art, and yet when I got into one of the things that propelled my career in film in a different direction was I worked on a film called This Is Spinal Tap. And speaking of druids, there's a part in there where they're singing about druids.
Really?
Yes, and they're going to have to do this. They're going to have a model of Stonehenge that's lowered down onto the set while they're playing their heavy metal music. Right?
What is this? A comedy or something?
It's a comedy. Do you know Rob Reiner, the director Rob Reiner, who did When Harry Met Sally, and his first film was This Is Spinal Tap.
Okay, this is like a comedy film called Spinal Tap.
It's a comedy, and it's a comedy about the loudest rock band It's not the greatest. It's not the. It's the loudest rock band.
Okay.
And they're really awful, but they're a group of English, players,
Musicians, right.
Musicians, and it's a whole. It was the first mockumentary.
And did you work on that?
I worked on that.
Oh God, you're responsible for that. I think I've seen a clip on YouTube.
And in fact, they're singing about, and it's mystical, and there's a fog, and they're talking about the Druids.
Yeah, it's a kind of spoof
And
thing. Isn't
when they're talking about the stage, is the thing they're drawing a picture of Stonehenge as a sketch for
Yeah.
the artist to build, and he accidentally, instead of putting 12 feet, he put 12 inches. So they
make a
lower
scaled
down
down
this
model.
little model of Stonehenge that's about this high, and they have a little small person dancing around it, like in a supposed druid outfit. And they're going, "What the heck? What the heck?" Well, I made it to your specifications, But anyway, it's through working on that I ended up working with the executive producer of a show called Friends, and he became my mentor in moving into more mainstream television. And I had always been interested in animation,
Okay.
and my career went off into directing animated films, and most of them are really, really violent.
Right. Well, hey, it's
They're
America,
violent comedies.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Well, we all grew up on Tom and Jerry, where they're always bashing each other.
right,
But it's more sophisticated what you were doing.
yeah, what we were doing is more tongue in cheek, and my reputation grew as a satiricist, and mostly it came from the blending of the innocent and profane.
Right.
So we would take innocent things and work them on their head by
Snow White and
yeah.
the 12 Aliens or something.
Right, exactly. Well, an example was there was a TV series for kids that was put out by the Lutheran Church called Davy and Goliath, about a little boy in modern times who had a dog, and he and his dog would discuss things, and there would always be a message about God or spirituality or morality.
Right.
And we paralleled that with a character named David Berkowitz, who was a serial killer in New York,
Oh no!
called the Son of Sam, who got his instructions to kill people from a dog. So we blended those two things. So instead of this little
Oh my
boy
God.
getting messages about God, the dog would say, "I need more blood, Davy."
Right, right. And that's humorous. Well, so really we have you see, to me, this is an example of the dark force of Hollywood. It's like putting out that violence.
Right.
And yet it's what people like, and therefore you can make a living doing that. You didn't have moral qualms about that.
Well, the thing is, I think that there's part of us as human beings that have that in our nature. And I don't think that...
What, what was it, killing kids for fun or something?
Well, just...
I mean, I've never killed anybody. You haven't, right?
Well, no, but I think that there's something in our nature that makes kids want to play war. I used to play war with my friends. That was our favorite
I played
thing to
war
do.
a lot. But
There was adventure to
But there's
it.
a line you don't, there's a line you don't cross if you're sensible. It seems to me in the States that line has become blurred, and that recent horrible, sad case of that guy whose father was working on the Hunger Games, and then he went berserk and started shooting people. I mean, it seems to me the line's got a bit blurred somewhere.
Yeah, I'm not sure that we can really say that has to do with video games. I remember reading about Vlad the Impaler, who was
Dracula.
Yeah, Dracula, who when he got tired of certain people in his town, invited them all to a big banquet, locked all the doors, and burned the place down while they were still alive.
Yeah, he was a
inside.
real guy.
Yeah, he was a real guy. So, I mean, I don't think that mass violence
It's a new
perpetrated by
invention.
some people, or needed some kind of stimulus like that. I think that it's part of our nature, and in idolizing Gandhi and listening to the words of Gandhi, he's someone I really look up to.
Right.
Of course, as we all do. His statement that Hitler is worthy of compassion is something to be pondered. Because if you lump all these violent people into a group of people that are somehow pathological without redemption, without an ability to be redeemed, then our idea of progression through reincarnation becomes less meaningful. If we understand that this could be a karmic thing happening on a whole other level that's beyond us, I can't hope to, when people say, why is there so much violence in the world? The only answer I can give them is that without all this, we would not be able to express forms of love like compassion or forgiveness or understanding or acceptance. These forms of love can only exist when things are perpetrated upon individuals by other individuals, these forms of love.
It does seem, I mean, this goes back to a conversation we were having recently about the cause and the need and the reason for suffering. It does seem that this planet offers the possibility of suffering, and that's part of the full gamut of human experience. I mean, I've often discussed this point with students of A-level philosophy that I've been teaching. If God could have created an absolutely perfect world, no illness, no death, no suffering, no pain, total utopia, bliss all the time, you know, would we want that? And actually, after a discussion, most people say, no, it would get boring. We want to have a little bit of suffering at least, so you would then appreciate the bliss. So from a Advaita perspective or a metaphysical perspective, you know, the bliss is all there. It's the Shambhala field. We're already in that bliss, but we create the illusion, the Maya of suffering, in order to have the learning of the compassion, as you say.
And it could be just that in the yin and yang of the whole wheel of samsara, that it's completely balanced with all the love and all of these things and all the destruction and all those things, that we're the ones who put the judgment on it. My interpretation of the Adam and Eve story is that the loss of paradise is from the ingestion of this and the embodiment of the knowledge of good and evil. Because
the dualism that comes.
Yes, if the garden is perfect, but we don't notice, then death and destruction and pain and suffering is just a part of it all. But the two things as human beings that we suffer from as a result of that are that, or the four things really, is that when we perceive bad in each other, now that we can see good and evil, if I couldn't see that before, it doesn't matter, but now that I can see good and evil, I see the good in you, or I see the bad in you, and I can blame